This is bloody ridiculous. You can only plan so much, and then nature rears its ugly head, and destiny takes you down a different path. It is then when the true warriors amongst us shine. Every time I go through the shutter's doors, I'm blinded by the sun just sitting above the horizon. Winter is closing in, and the sun is struggling to keep its head above the ground. But these trailers aren't going to unload themselves. Christmas is on its way, but in the supermarket warehouse distribution game, it started months ago. Pallets upon pallets of beer, chocolates, mince pie, sage and onion, stuffing balls, you name it. We're holding it here ready to be shipped out at a moment's notice. This one depot is holding the hopes and dreams of every child, teen and adult in Middle England. Santa was the myth, the tale we tell our children and a game we adults carry on through our lifetime. But the truth was, it took a town in the heart of the country to deliver Christmas in all its glory. Not an elf or reindeer in sight, just a few Brits that didn't take IT back in the 90s, combined with a ragtag team of Europeans, Africans and Asians, working 12-hour shifts, loading and unloading trailers, forking pallets 50 foot into the air and lowering them to an army of pickers to assemble. It was a glorious sight to see in full flow. The main distribution centre of Sainsbury's in Northampton could give an army of ants a run for its money. I sat upon my trusty steed in full battle armour, ready to charge the blood-ridden fields of the docking bay, but the sun was blinding my vision, and it could cause problems. I reached into my high-vis webbing, but nothing. My combat trousers with its impressive amount of pockets just had my safety knife. Not yet, Long Claw, I thought. I reached down to pet my trusty steed, a Toyota Trigo 80, four-wheel electronic forklift with a 3-ton capacity and double handling capability purred beneath my groin. My hands slipped into one of the truck's varied nooks and crannies, and my fingers felt for the familiar feel of well-crafted plastic. I flipped them open and sat them upon my face, a pair of black Ray-Bans to combat the elements. Now I can begin. I was on my 12th trailer that day, 4 hours into my shift. The battle was going well. The small but dedicated force of trucks and their drivers were clearing the loading bay floor as fast as I could fill it. No casualties, no steeds malfunctioning yet, and not a drop spilt from trailer to truck to bay to truck to air. A flawless campaign was raging, a strategic example of efficiency and excellence of skills were being displayed by the brave men and women of the late shift Ambient Goods in Alliance in the failing light of the day. I could hear history calling, the carving of stone tablets and typing onto electronic ones for the benefit of the future employees willing to learn the ancient art of tipping across England's warehouse distribution network. Today is going to be a good day. A day where good defeats evil. A day to be remembered. I lined up my trusted steed by the shutter door, ready to battle with Trailer 13 and continue the fight, pressing my advantage on the pallets that lay ahead. "Frank!" shouted my superior officer. It was line manager Gavin Smithers, a tall, portly chap that commanded respect by the sheer size of the man, a capable officer that had been overlooked by the hierarchy of the establishment. You need it in the first aid room. One of the pickers has a splinter in her finger and there's some bleeding. Can you please help her out? Thanks, mate. Cheers. Barked my commanding officer. Sure thing. I'm on my way, sir, I replied respectfully. The first casualty of the day. Over the years, my battlefield first aid had grown from the 3-day course that St John Ambulance provided to an overwhelming knowledge of the human anatomy. There wasn't a sprain, cut, bruise, or twisted ankle that I couldn't diagnose and treat. I had seen much blood over the years in that room, and the subsequent pain that had followed the occupants. But you have to put such memories aside and concentrate on the waiting depravity that lay ahead. This was not my first splinter, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I disembarked my trusty steed at the doors of Bay 79, applied the handbrake and used the 3 points of contact before dismounting. A near-forgotten skill that was taught to me by my old master Ben years ago during the time of Wincanton. Ben had taught the Old Guard the ancient ways of the FLT. Ah, the Old Guard. Many had left by now, some by choice, some by other means. Old Ben left for the night shift many, many moons ago to bring safety and experience to the dark times. We mourned his leaving. But when the universe calls and lays down her demands, you'd better listen. I called to my Padawan Harrison, who was checking on the bay floor. I am needed elsewhere on the battlefield. Hold the line till my return, I bellowed across the bay. Whatever, twat. I need to change my scanner anyway. It's not working, replied my Padawan. Till I return then, I said, and started the long march to the next chamber, where the first aid room was located. Take those stupid glasses off, shouted Gavin from the pick desk. And stop pretending you're in a movie. That girl's in need of first aid, not rescuing, prat. I was used to their mockery and slights against my character. I could hear their taunts and mockery as I walked through the ambient chamber to the bloodied body that awaited me. I didn't pay attention to the jeers or their jokes. A woman's finger was in my hands, and time was of the essence. I removed my Ray-Bans and slipped them into one of my many pockets in my combat trousers, and headed along the yellow walkway away from the pleasant ambient temperatures and into the chilling temperatures of the produce domain. The artificial light made my eyes squint as I entered, and a cold breeze from the large fans chilled my bones. The temperature in here could be as low as 5 to 10 degrees above freezing, and I was not dressed for such variables. The smell of vegetables and fruit engulfed my nostrils and penetrated deep into my lungs, taking me back to my childhood and the horrid times at the dining room table. Being force-fed broccoli and peas turned my stomach, and I felt sickness rise in my throat. I swallowed it back down, took a deep breath, and continued into the produce domain with all that it held. The warriors in the produce department are a strange breed with their own language. Heavily clothed with multiple layers, not quite cold enough for freezer gear, but cold enough to try and stay warm. Cries such as clamp are needed, and MUs for eggs could be heard from the deep. I tried years ago to decipher their language, make some sense from the madness. Weird high-pitched clicks and clacks that bounced off the large white walls, giving them an eerie tone. But I had to stop, for I too was falling into the madness of the produce domain. I never again tried to communicate with the produce warriors. There are some things in nature that should never mix. From that day, I gave them a wide berth. The first aid room was in the back at the corner of the department, a small offshoot of the warehouse where lives hang in the balance. Charges of disciplinary and malpractice hang in the air like a thick fog. Many a spirit has been lost in that room, never quite the same again. Worrying times. I'm approaching the first aid room now. Do I dare look to the east? There lies the chill department, a frozen wasteland littered with strange beings known as new starters. A bead of sweat trickles down my spine at the mere thought of the depravity that lays on the other side of that shutter door. If I couldn't understand the produce people and their ways, there was no chance of comprehending the absolute chaos of the chill domain. I put such thoughts out of my mind and concentrated on more pressing matters. I stand outside, close my eyes and say a small prayer. Strength and honour do not fail me now. Let this innocent woman pass safely through the doors of the first aid and on to Nirvana and beyond. I hope her children who are waiting at home get to be embraced by a 10-digit mother when the day finally ends. In the interest of privacy and good conscience, I cannot go into details of the patient's incident. Incident, I say. I cannot say it was an accident, as that may imply there was someone to blame. The hows and whys are not my concern. Just the safety of the finger and the well-being of my patient is my duty. Every action is calculated and considered before implementing. Steady hands are needed here and a clear focus of mind. The slightest mistake could result in, well, best not think about that really. Over the course of time, I managed to successfully extract the splinter from the woman's finger, using a safety pin to gouge the foreign matter from her hand. There was much blood loss. I had to improvise, and quickly. I countered with a Mars bar, and I used a plaster to cover the wound from infection. I hoped that would suffice, for the sake of the children waiting at home. I slipped her an extra plaster in case it came off during the investigation that would inevitably follow. This was going against protocol, but I told myself this was for the children. And I hoped the managers that conducted the investigation wouldn't pry too much into the first aid treatment and concentrate more on the hows and whys. That was their job now. Let the games begin. The investigation would be conducted in the quiet room by her line manager, and I could do nothing to help this poor woman. She was on her own now. One wrong word from her lips could spell disaster for her and her siblings. She could be sent home with no sick pay, on her own, with a disciplinary pending. But let's hope it doesn't come for that, for the sake of the children. There was a knock at the door. They're here. Management had arrived with investigation notepaper and 2 pens. They were taking this seriously, and there was nothing I could do to help. Line manager Gavin opened the door and stared down on us. "All better now. Did Frank get the splinter out?" he said. "Yeah, you did a great job. All better now, thanks," said the woman. I could hear the stress levels in her voice rise. I could feel her pulse race with the thought of what was to follow. But there was no saving her now. She was in the hands of management, and they had their protocols to follow. Protocols must be obeyed. "Leave the first aid paperwork on the desk and return the goods in now, Frank. Cheers, pal, thanks," Gavin said with a crooked smile and a look in his eyes that only type 2 diabetes could explain. And with that, I lowered and bowed my head to the commander and shuffled out of the room. I stood for a moment, listening to my breathing. What that poor girl is in for now can only be described as barbaric. Oh, God. A brief chat, followed by the dreaded drug and alcohol tests, before settling into the first of many thorough investigations that may lead to disciplinary actions and maybe, just maybe, dismissal. Let's pray it doesn't come to that. But what could I do? I've done everything I could to help the fair maiden in her time of need. The words of old Ben came to me there and then. Do your best, use your common sense, and always end it with saying, "Any problems, please consult your GP. Then you're covered, whatever happens." Wise words, old Ben. Wise words indeed. Besides, I had my own battle to survive. Harrison would have replaced his scanner by now and be awaiting for my return. I could not let him down. Not now, not after everything we'd been through. The thought of my Padawan's eyes lighting up when he sees my successful return will bring him joy to his young heart, and I could not deprive him of that. I strode across the produce department with a renewed purpose and anticipation to get back to the front line. I reached the door to the ambient department, opened it a little, and looked back. "Hail to the fallen!" I cried out, and saluted the men and women of the produce department. "May God have mercy on your souls, those who have them, that is." The produce warriors had no clue to what I was saying, could not comprehend the words that they were hearing, but deep down I think they understood that a fellow warrior had fallen. The humid air in the ambient domain started to warm my bones. Life was returning to my limbs. Blood pumped through my veins once again, and a burning desire to return to the battle took over. As the last slither of light hit my face from the setting sun, my safety boots touched the hallowed grounds of the loading bay. My young Padawan Harrison was nervously awaiting my return. He was looking anxious and confused, but when he saw me, he lit up like a beacon with love in his heart and joy in his face at my return. "Took your bloody time. The live one on 79 is going to pull out if you don't start tipping it now, twat," shouted Harrison. His words were harsh, yes, but his eyes told a different story, and over the decades I had learned to read them. He had missed his master, and he was scared of the watch cage from where he had to go to get his new scanner. For it lay on the other end of the ambient department, past the safety of the picking grounds and the MHE parking area. Perhaps he had a tale to tell of courage and bravery too, but it would have to wait. "Calm yourself, my young Padawan. Your master has returned, fear not." I mounted my trusty steed, kicked the beast into life, reached into my combat trousers, feeling for that familiar, well-crafted plastic. Pulled out my Ray-Bans, placed them upon the bridge of my nose, headed back out into battle once again. Harrison looked at me in awe at that moment, for there was one warrior left in the fight, and his name was warehouse collie Frank Miller, first aider, FLT, CTB, PPT, LLOP trained, fire marshal, approved, and member of the elite Ambient Gootin Alliance. My Padawan Harrison cheered and shouted battle cries of support.
Twat!
But my wheels were rolling and their blood was pumping. Let battle commence. Charge!